Starting lineup for Stanford University. Stroking the boat is Aaron Frankel, a 6'5" sophomore from Chevy Chase, Maryland. Rowing 7, Mark Murphy, a 6'4" junior from Madison, Wisconsin. In the 6th seat, Silas Stafford, a 6'4" senior from Santa Rosa, California. Rowing 5 is Ottavio Ciani, a 6'4" senior from Concord, Massachusetts. Rowing 4 is Alex Osborne, a 6'2" junior from Sherman Oaks, California. Rowing 3 is Charles Lilly, a 6'2" junior from Carmichael, California. In the 2 seat, Dave Creighton, a 6'2" senior from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. In the bow is Alec Levy, a 6'2" sophomore from Bethesda, Maryland. The coxswain today is Amelia Carr, a sophomore from Eugene, Oregon. And the Cardinal are coached by Craig Amerkanian in his 7th year at Stanford. And now let's meet the oarsman from the University of California. Stroking the boat is Sean Engel, a 6'3" sophomore from Green Bay, California. In the 7th seat, Benedict Tufnell, a 6'6" sophomore from Silchester, England. Rowing 6 is Nikola Zunic, a 6'3" sophomore from Zagreb, Croatia. In the 5 seat, Nareg Garigian, a 6'5" sophomore from San Clemente, California. Rowing 4 is Brandon Schald, a 6'4" sophomore from Sausalito, California. In the 3 seat, Will Dean, a 6'5" sophomore from Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. At 2 is Charlie Smith, a 6'2" senior from Elvetham, England. In the bow, Marko Marjanovic, a 6'3" senior from Belgrade, Serbia. The coxswain is Michael Porter, a junior from Orange, California. And the Golden Bears are coached by Steve Gladstone in his 20th season at Cal.
And we're off. Great start for both crews. California clearly going for it here off the line. Their best start I've seen this year. Stanford, as we saw there, the coxswain had to make a course correction after the first 3 or 4 strokes. She got pulled off the port. Very typical problem off a starting line for any coxswain. She's now back on course. Both crews here off way high, 45 and a half strokes per minute. At 150, 200 meters gone, I'd give California about 2 or 3 seats. Now we're just moving into the settle. Both crews are executing very, very well here. We're through the breakage point, which here is 250 meters. We have a clean race underway. Some very good steering going on. You can tell by our camera angles, the coxswains are not going to get much relief from close scrutiny on their courses.
Approaching 500.
Through 500 meters now. Stanford has brought itself back up to about dead even with California. Stanford has settled just slightly higher than California. They're about 35, 36 strokes per minute. California here on our rating is only at 33 and a half. 2 sophomore strokes. The Cal stroke, Sean Engel, was the stroke of the undefeated freshman boat last year. And then untried Aaron Frankel for Stanford. At 750 meters. Stanford has now taken up about a 2-seat lead over California. Stanford is starting to eke itself out a nice little margin here. Take a look at the contrails of the boats. Both coxswains doing a particularly good job here, staying on course. Stanford is hanging on tough. They're giving California a real run for it here. And in fact, I think they're starting to get a bit of confidence that California is not coming back on them. They're through 1,000 meters now. Stanford, now with a bit of confidence in their swing, they're starting to move out just a bit more as we come through the bridge. 1,200 meters gone, 4.5, 5 seats to Stanford. Take a look at some really top-class crews racing it head-to-head here at Redwood Shores. 1,300 meters, Stanford continue to eke out a few inches on every stroke. They're now up to about 5 seats over California. And still slightly overstroking California.
Approaching 1,500.
Coming up on 1,500 meters.
Mark.
It's Stanford first across with 5 seats over California. A very tight boat race, one of the best races we've seen out here on Redwood Shores in several years. California now starting to move back slightly on Stanford. The margin between the two boats now about 4.5, 5 seats. California sensing that they've got very little time to close that gap. We're now down to the last 300 meters. It's Stanford with 5 seats over California. California now creeping back up. California in full-out sprint mode now, 37 strokes per minute, has moved back to within 4 seats of Stanford. Stanford now cranking it a bit. 2 crews stroke for stroke, but it's Stanford who's got the 5 or 6 seats over California now. Stanford looks to be on their way to their first win in 18 years over California. And at the line, it's Stanford by 9/10 of a second over California. What a fantastic race we've just witnessed.